The galaxy was vast, endless, and filled with stars that burned like diamonds against the black. Yet despite its beauty, it had never known true freedom. For centuries, the Vraxians ruled every star system. Their power absolute, their will unchallenged. They were towering beings with metallic skin that reflected starlight, eyes like molten silver, and voices that could command fear itself. Every planet bent under their control. Civilizations either obeyed or were erased. Resistance was unthinkable. Captain Threx of the Vraxian fleet hovered above a small blue-green planet. His claws tapped impatiently against the command console as he studied the surface. "Primitive," he muttered, his voice echoing through the control room. Yet defiant. "They do not kneel." Around him, thousands of ships stretched like a dark swarm across the void, ready to enforce the Vraxian rule, yet something in him stirred unease. Not often did a species make even the slightest ripple of doubt in a Vraxian's certainty. On the planet below, humans went about their lives, unaware of the shadows looming above. Cities hummed with the noise of engines and voices. Children played in dusty streets and lovers walked under twin suns, dreaming of simple futures. They were fragile, unarmed against the power of the galaxy's mightiest conquerors, but they carried something the Vraxians could never understand: hope, resilience, and stubborn courage. In a hidden orbital dock, a human battleship floated silently, enormous but modest compared to the alien dreadnoughts. Its hull was battered, patched from years of improvisation, yet inside it was alive with purpose. Lieutenant Mara Jenkins walked along the deck, her boots clicking against metal. Her eyes, a deep green, held determination sharper than any blade. Around her, the crew worked in tense silence, aware that they were alone against a force that had never been defeated. Mara paused at the main viewport and stared into the stars. She had spent her life training for this moment, preparing for the impossible. The humans had always been outnumbered, outgunned, and underestimated, but they had survived every challenge thrown at them. Hunger, disease, war, environmental collapse. Humanity had faced these without surrendering. Against the Vraxians, they would face death again, but this time they had a chance to make the universe notice them. Her second-in-command, Lieutenant Raj Patel, approached cautiously. "Captain, the fleet above is unlike anything we've studied." "Their numbers, billions of soldiers, thousands of ships." He hesitated, lowering his voice. "We can't win this by force alone." Mara turned to him, her expression calm but fierce. "Raj, we're not here to win by numbers. One ship, one strike, one decision, that's all it takes to change history. Fear does not make us weak. Courage does." Her words were simple, but they carried weight, the kind that made even seasoned officers feel a spark of hope. Across the galaxy, Threx prepared his fleet. His pride had been unchallenged for centuries. Every planet had bowed. Every species had cowered, every rebellion crushed before it began. And yet this small planet had sent a message, a challenge. A human battleship had emerged from the shadows, moving boldly toward the center of Vraxian territory. It was audacious, foolish, and infuriating. The Vraxian War Council gathered around Threx. "They are insignificant," one officer said. "A single vessel cannot harm us. Eradicate it quickly." Threx nodded, but inside a storm brewed. There was something in the humans' movement, their strategy, the way they carried themselves, something he had not seen in centuries. It was not fear, not obedience, but defiance. And defiance, he knew, was dangerous. On the human ship, Mara convened her crew in the command chamber. "This mission is not just about survival," she said, her voice steady. "It's about sending a message. The galaxy has been told that nothing can resist the Vraxians. We will prove them wrong. And even if we fall, our courage will be remembered. History will remember that one small species dared to rise against the impossible." The crew exchanged glances. Fear mingled with determination. Engineers checked engines. Gunners loaded weapons. Navigators plotted impossible trajectories. Outside, the stars glittered coldly, indifferent to the lives moving among them. Yet inside the human ship, hope burned like a firestorm. Mara stepped back to the viewport. She imagined the galaxy watching, silent, waiting for the first move. She felt a shiver run down her spine. Not from fear, but from the weight of possibility. One human battleship, alone against the greatest power in the galaxy, carrying the fragile spark of defiance that could ignite a revolution. And somewhere far above, Threx's fleet waited, unaware that the galaxy's fate was about to be challenged. Not by numbers, not by strength, but by the courage of one small, determined species. The humans were ready. The Vraxians would soon learn that pride, no matter how vast, can be broken. The USS Defiant drifted through the endless black of space, alone but unwavering. Stars streaked past like silent witnesses, their distant light indifferent to the small human ship carrying the weight of an entire species' hope. Lieutenant Mara Jenkins stood on the bridge, her eyes fixed on the glowing pinpricks ahead. Vraxian sensors detecting her presence, calculating her threat. They didn't know fear yet. That would come soon. "Captain," Raj Patel said, his voice steady but low. "They're approaching. The fleet is moving to intercept. They'll arrive in less than 10 minutes. Mara didn't flinch. She walked slowly to the viewport, letting the crew see her calm determination. "We knew this day would come," she said quietly. "This is why we trained. This is why we survived every impossible scenario on Earth. One ship can't fight billions, but one ship can change everything if it dares." The crew nodded, faces pale but resolute. Young men and women who had spent their lives hearing that humanity was insignificant now felt the weight of history in their hands. Engineers checked weapon systems, monitors blinked with calculations of evasive maneuvers, and every heart aboard beat in unison with the rhythm of courage. Above them, the Vraxian fleet stretched endlessly, a dark ocean of metallic ships that gleamed coldly in the starlight. Captain Threx watched from his flagship towering over his officers. "Insignificant," he said again, but his claws tapped nervously against the console. "Yet they move like they believe they can survive." "Why?" A young Vraxian officer dared to speak. "Captain, perhaps they are suicidal. Or perhaps they have unknown weapons. We have never faced such audacity." Threx's silver eyes narrowed. He despised humans for their cheek, their endless defiance. No creature had ever dared challenge the Vraxian Empire openly. Yet this small species, armed with nothing but their ingenuity, seemed fearless. It enraged him. Back on the Defiant, Mara issued orders calmly. "Keep formation. Maintain distance. Wait for their first move. Every strike will be precise. Every action counts." Her crew obeyed without hesitation. The tension was suffocating, yet there was a strange exhilaration too, the kind that comes when facing the impossible. "Captain," Raj whispered, "they're sending a warning beam. Energy signature is intimidating." Mara watched the beam cut through space, a silent message of power. Most would have trembled. Most would have surrendered. But she saw it for what it was, a signal of arrogance, not invincibility. "Let them see who we are," she said softly. "Let them feel what humanity is capable of." The first shot streaked across the void. Vraxian lasers illuminated the darkness faster than the eye could follow, aiming to obliterate the tiny human ship in a heartbeat. The Defiant shuddered as shields flared, but Mara's crew responded with coordinated precision. Weapons fired, shields shifted, engines maneuvered through impossible trajectories. Every human aboard moved as one, a living machine powered by courage and purpose. The Vraxians were bewildered. Their weapons struck, but the humans dodged with unexplainable skill. One by one, small sections of the alien fleet faltered. Confusion rippled across the command decks. Threx slammed his claw on the console. "How? This is impossible." Mara didn't celebrate. She knew the battle had only begun. But she allowed herself a small, quiet satisfaction. Humans had survived the first wave. They had reminded the galaxy that bravery was stronger than fear, that ingenuity could defeat overwhelming odds. Hours passed like minutes. Explosions lit the black canvas of space. The humans pressed on, striking with careful precision. Every hit was a statement, They would not bow, they would not surrender, and they would not die quietly. Somewhere deep in the fleet, Vraxian soldiers whispered among themselves, a flicker of doubt entering their hearts for the first time. Mara felt the weight of their eyes upon her, across light years of space. She remembered stories from Earth, of small groups who stood against tyrants, who faced impossible odds, and who survived not because they were the strongest, but because they refused to quit. Humanity had always been underestimated, and yet it had endured. Now, in the silence of space broken only by the roar of engines and weapons fire, humanity showed it could fight the unconquerable, and above all, Mara understood something no one else could teach. Courage was contagious. One spark, one ship, one choice to stand. This could ignite hope across the galaxy. The Vraxians had ruled through fear. The humans would rule through defiance. As the Defiant moved closer to the center of the Vraxian fleet, Mara whispered to herself, "We are small. We are alone, but we are not afraid." And that is everything. In the darkness of space, a tiny ship blazed with purpose. The galaxy was about to see the human spark, the spark that could light the fire of change, that could shatter the pride of empires, and that would remind every sentient being that courage, no matter how small, could challenge the impossible. The void of space was silent, except for the hum of engines and the faint pulse of distant stars. The USS Defiant glided forward, a lone shadow against the overwhelming Vraxian fleet. Hundreds of enormous alien ships stretched across the darkness, their metallic hulls gleaming coldly. To anyone else, it would have seemed impossible. One human battleship against an empire's armada. But to Mara Jenkins, this was the moment she had been preparing for her entire life. "Captain," Raj Patel said, staring at the console. "They've detected us fully. Shields are aligning. They're coming for us." Mara didn't flinch. Her green eyes were steady, her hands lightly resting on the command panel. "Let them come," she whispered. "They've never faced humans like this before. They think fear is natural. They will learn." Above, in the heart of the Vraxian fleet, Captain Threx's eyes narrowed. "Prepare the attack. This human vessel will be crushed before it takes another breath." His voice was low, dangerous, echoing across the bridge. "I want no hesitation. Fire everything." And then the first strike came. Beams of concentrated energy shot across space, cutting through darkness like molten knives. The Defiant shook violently as the shields flared, absorbing what should have been a killing blow. Sparks danced across the command deck, warning lights flickering. "Shields at 70%, a crew member shouted. "Hull integrity is holding, but barely." Mara's mind raced, calm but precise. "Divert power to engines. Evasive patterns alpha. Fire pulse cannons when ready." The humans moved as one. The ship weaved, twisted, and danced through the barrage of alien fire. It was a choreography of survival. Every movement calculated yet fluid. And then, Mara gave the order. The pulse cannons fired. A wave of energy surged outward, striking the nearest Vraxian ships. Shields flickered, systems faltered, and several cruisers were disabled instantly. Confusion spread across the alien fleet. Thousands of years of dominance had never prepared them for this. One small, fragile human ship had dared to fight back and strike where it hurt most. Threx's eyes blazed. "Impossible," he roared. They should not exist." His massive hands gripped the console so hard that the metal groaned. Officers exchanged nervous glances. They had never witnessed a single vessel withstand direct assault and retaliate with such precision. On the Defiant, the crew cheered quietly. Victory was still far away, but the first wave had been survived. Mara felt her heart pound, not from fear but from the awareness that the impossible was possible. One strike, one decision, one moment had shifted the balance. "Captain," Raj said, voice tight with emotion, "they're regrouping. They're focusing fire on us now. It's overwhelming." Mara took a deep breath. "I know." Her voice was steady, carrying the weight of command. "But we are not just surviving. We are making them see us. every system they control, every fleet they command. They think their strength is absolute. We are here to show them it is not. Explosions lit the black canvas of space. Smaller human drones darted like fireflies, drawing enemy fire and creating openings for the Defiant. The ship shuddered as another beam grazed the hull, sending a jolt through the entire vessel. Mara gritted her teeth, imagining the stories her crew would tell after this battle. Stories that would outlive them. Stories of courage against impossible odds. Threx's voice echoed with fury. Do not underestimate them. They are only one ship. Crush it! But each attempt to overwhelm the humans failed. The Defiant danced through destruction, striking back at critical points in the Vraxian formation. Systems overloaded, engines failed, shields flickered. The fleet was vast, but chaos had found a foothold. Pride, which had sustained the Vraxians for centuries, began to crack. Mara walked to the viewport, staring at the nearest Vraxian flagship. Its massive hull loomed like a mountain of steel and light. She knew it could destroy them instantly if it landed a direct shot. Yet she felt no fear. Humanity had survived worse. Famines, wars, plagues. They had endured everything and risen stronger. And now, humanity stood alone against the galaxy's most feared conquerors. Hold steady, Mara said to her crew. Every strike, every maneuver counts. Remember who we are. Remember what we fight for. The pulse cannons charged again. The Defiant surged forward, dodging lasers, weaving between energy beams and striking again. Ships that had seemed invincible faltered under precise human strategy. Mara's crew moved with quiet determination, hearts pounding, hands steady. They were not just fighting. They were defying fate itself. And somewhere deep in the Vraxian fleet, doubt began to creep into the hearts of soldiers who had never questioned the invincibility of their empire. One ship, one human vessel, was rewriting the rules of power. Mara whispered almost to herself. We are small. We are alone. But we are not afraid, and they will never forget that. The first battle was over, but the war was just beginning. And in that silent, dark space, the spark of humanity had been ignited. A spark that could burn brighter than any fleet of metallic conquerors. The silence after the first clash was deafening. Space seemed to hold its breath, waiting for what would come next. The USS Defiant drifted through the void, scars along its hull glowing faintly from recent battle. The crew moved quietly, repairing systems and checking weapons. No one celebrated loudly. Victory had come, yes, but the galaxy was still full of threats, and every second could bring the next wave of destruction. Captain Mara Jenkins walked to the viewport, staring at the remnants of the Vraxian fleet that lingered in the distance. The massive ships that had once seemed untouchable now floated damaged and faltering. Sparks of energy flickered across some of the larger vessels, evidence of the human ship's relentless strike. Her heart beat with a mixture of relief and tension. The humans had survived their first test, but the war had only begun. Captain, Raj Patel said softly. They're regrouping. But I've never seen them move like this before. Hesitant, confused, Mara nodded. They were never challenged like this. Pride makes giants blind, and now they've seen the cost of underestimating us. Her voice was calm, but inside a storm of emotions churned. Humanity was small. Humanity was fragile, and yet they had done the impossible. They had made the unthinkable happen. Above them, on the bridge of the Vraxian flagship, Captain Threx paced furiously. His claws struck consoles with a force that made metal groan. Every officer around him looked anxious, unsure. The Vraxians had never failed like this. A single human battleship had shattered their confidence, exposing weaknesses that had never been questioned. This cannot be. Threx growled. How can one vessel, one pathetic human ship, withstand everything? Their shields, their weapons. It defies reason. One of his lieutenants dared to speak. Captain, perhaps they are exceptional. Perhaps this species is not as primitive as we believed. Threx's eyes flashed with rage. Exceptional? They are insignificant. We are gods to this galaxy. And yet they dare? His voice trailed into a growl. Pride, which had carried the Vraxians for centuries, now cracked like brittle glass. Back on the Defiant, Mara addressed her crew. "This is the moment we've trained for. We've made them see us, and they will never forget it. But we cannot falter now. Their pride is broken and they will strike harder. We have to be ready for everything." The crew listened in silence. The fear in their hearts had not disappeared, but it had been replaced by something stronger. Courage, determination, and the knowledge that they had already accomplished what many thought impossible. One human ship had made the mighty Vraxians hesitate. One human ship had shown the galaxy that strength was not measured in numbers alone. Mara remembered stories from Earth, heroes who stood against impossible odds, ordinary people who faced tyrants and survived. Humanity had always been underestimated, and now against the most powerful empire in the galaxy, they were proving that spirit could outweigh sheer force. The Vraxians, however, were far from defeated. Threx ordered his fleet to form a tighter blockade, to concentrate fire, to ensure that no human ship could survive another encounter. But hesitation lingered among his officers. Doubt had been planted in the soil of their pride, and it was spreading quickly. On the Defiant, Mara felt a mix of fear and hope. Every decision she made could mean life or death. Every command could lead to survival or annihilation. Yet in the midst of it all, she felt something extraordinary. The knowledge that humans, no matter how small, could stand against giants. "Prepare for their next wave," she said. "And remember, we fight not just to survive, but to show the galaxy that courage matters. Our victory is not in destruction alone, it is in defiance." As the stars stretched endlessly before them, the Defiant shone like a beacon of hope. A single human battleship had shattered centuries of fear. The Vraxians' pride was broken, their confidence shaken, and their empire now faced a truth they could not ignore. Even the greatest power could be challenged. Mara's eyes scanned the dark horizon. The humans had won the first round, but the battle was far from over. And yet she felt a quiet fire within her. A fire that told her humanity could endure even against the unthinkable. For the first time in history, the galaxy had seen that courage. Not size, not technology, not fleets of ships, could change everything. And somewhere deep in the heart of the Vraxian fleet, a seed of fear had been planted, a fear that would grow as long as humans dared to fight. The Defiant floated through the stars, battered but unbroken, carrying hope not just for the crew aboard, but for every soul in the galaxy who had ever felt powerless. Humanity had broken the pride of gods, and they would not forget the lesson. Courage, when guided by determination, could shine brighter than any empire. The USS Defiant surged forward, engines roaring softly against the silent void of space. Every system aboard the ship hummed with tension. The Vraxian fleet, still reeling from their first encounter, regrouped into a tighter formation, their pride wounded, their eyes burning with fury. They had underestimated humanity once. They would not make that mistake again, at least they hoped. Captain Mara Jenkins stood at the viewport watching the alien ships shift and move. "They think fear will guide us," she said quietly to herself. "They don't understand that fear can fuel courage." Around her, the crew moved with focused energy, preparing weapons, recalibrating shields, and adjusting navigation. Every heartbeat on the Defiant seemed amplified, each second heavier than the last. Lieutenant Raj Patel approached her, a tablet glowing in his hands. "Captain, they've concentrated fire on our starboard side. If we don't maneuver, their beam arrays could pierce the hull." Mara's eyes narrowed. "Then we maneuver. Divert all non-essential power to engines. I want unpredictable patterns. Make them think we are weaker than we are. Then strike where it hurts most." The crew followed her orders with practiced precision. Engineers adjusted energy flow. Gunners aligned the pulse cannons. Navigators charted impossible courses through asteroid fields and debris. The ship moved like a living organism, responding to Mara's commands with grace and lethal intent. Suddenly, the Vraxians launched a massive barrage. Beams of molten energy cut through the darkness, aiming to obliterate the tiny human vessel. The Defiant shook violently as the shields flared, sending sparks and alarm lights across the bridge. Yet the humans didn't panic. They had survived worse. On Earth, humanity had faced famine, disease, and war and still risen. Space was no different. Mara's voice rang clear over the alarms. "Hold steady. Fire pulse cannons on my mark." The energy wave surged outward, striking the Vraxian cruisers with devastating precision. Shields faltered, engines failed, and several ships were disabled entirely. Chaos spread across the alien fleet. Officers shouted in confusion. Threx's calm control wavered. For the first time, the mighty Vraxians felt real fear, not for themselves, but for the reputation of their empire. "Captain," Raj said, his voice tight with tension, "they're sending reinforcements from the rear. We can't hold them off forever." Mara's lips pressed into a thin line. "Then we make every second count. They may outnumber us, but they do not outthink us. Humanity survives because we adapt, because we never give up. Show them what we are made of." The ship shuddered as another volley struck, but the humans held their formation. Pulse cannons fired again, this time targeting the flagship engines. A massive explosion rippled through the Vraxian dreadnought, and the alien soldiers screamed in disbelief. Ships that had seemed invincible now floated like wreckage, pride shattered, morale crumbling. The Vraxians realized their empire was not unbreakable. Mara closed her eyes briefly, feeling a rush of emotion. She thought of the millions of humans across countless worlds, of their struggles and triumphs, of all the impossible things they had survived, and she knew in that moment that the human spirit was stronger than any weapon. "Captain," Raj whispered, "they're focusing all fire on us now." "This could be the end," Mara's gaze hardened. "Then we make it count. Even if we fall, our courage will be remembered. We are not just fighting for survival. We are fighting to show the galaxy that no empire, no matter how mighty, can crush the will of the determined." The Defiant darted through space like a silver ghost, weaving between beams of energy, striking at critical points in the alien fleet. Explosions blossomed around them, painting the darkness with fire and light. The crew worked in perfect harmony, fear replaced by determination, adrenaline fueling every decision. Somewhere in the Vraxian fleet, Threx's pride cracked completely. "They are only one ship," he growled, his voice shaking. "And yet, they fight as if the galaxy depends on them. How can this be?" The humans didn't answer, they acted. Every movement was precise, every strike calculated. The tide of battle was not in raw power, but in strategy, courage, and the refusal to surrender. Humanity had always been underestimated, and now, against the greatest conquerors in the galaxy, they proved that determination could turn the impossible into reality. Mara's voice echoed across the bridge, calm and commanding. "Remember, crew, we may be small, but one spark can ignite the darkest night. This is our moment. Let the galaxy see what humans are capable of." And as the Defiant surged forward once more, slicing through the chaos, one thought burned in Mara's mind. Courage is stronger than fear, hope stronger than despair, and a determined heart can shatter even the proudest empire. The stars stretched endlessly around the USS Defiant, silent witnesses to the chaos of battle. Explosions lit the darkness like dying suns, and the Vraxian fleet, once an unstoppable force, was beginning to falter. Mara Jenkins stood on the bridge, her hands gripping the railing, her green eyes fixed on the largest Vraxian dreadnought ahead. This ship was a mountain of steel and firepower, capable of obliterating the Defiant with a single shot. And yet it was not invincible. Not if humans were at the helm. "Captain," Lieutenant Raj Patel said, his voice tense, "they're concentrating everything on us. The dreadnought is preparing a full salvo. If we don't move, we're finished." Mara's jaw tightened. "Then we make them miss. Divert all available power to engines and shields. Use the asteroid field ahead. It's risky, but it's our only chance." The crew moved like a single organism, each member aware that one mistake could mean death. Engines roared as the Defiant twisted and darted between massive asteroids, using the debris as cover. Beams of energy streaked past, tearing through the rocks that exploded into fragments. Sparks and alarms filled the bridge, but Mara remained calm. Fear had no place here, only courage and precision. Threx, aboard the Vraxian flagship, watched in disbelief. His claws slammed against the console as fury and fear battled inside him. How one ship, just one human ship, evades my fleet like it is a ghost? His officers cowered under his gaze, none daring to speak. For centuries, no creature had challenged the Vraxians so directly, and survived. Back on the Defiant, Mara gave the order. Prepare the pulse cannons. We're striking the Dreadnought's engines. Precision, not brute force. Hit the core simultaneously, the humans fired. Energy surged outward, a wave of calculated power that struck the Vraxian Dreadnought at its weakest points. Shields flickered, engines failed, and alarms blared across the alien flagship. A massive explosion rocked the ship, sending fragments of metal and fire into the void. Several smaller vessels nearby were caught in the blast, chaos spreading like wildfire through the Vraxian formation. Mara felt a rush of emotion, a mix of triumph and exhaustion. They had done the impossible. One human ship had crippled the mightiest vessel in the galaxy. Yet there was no time to celebrate. The battle was far from over, and the Vraxians were furious. "Captain," Raj said quietly, "they're retreating, but their fleet is fractured. This is our moment. We can press the advantage." Mara nodded, her voice steady despite the adrenaline coursing through her veins. "Yes, push forward. Strike with precision. We may be small, but one spark can ignite an entire galaxy." The Defiant surged again, darting between explosions and laser fire. Every move was calculated, every strike precise. The humans were outnumbered, outgunned and exhausted, but they were unstoppable in their determination. They were not just fighting for survival. They were fighting for hope, for pride, for every life the Vraxians had tried to crush. Threx's fury had turned to desperation. "Concentrate fire on them! Leave nothing standing." They cannot survive. But the humans had already proven that raw power alone could not destroy them. Strategy, courage, and ingenuity carried the day. The Defiant struck again, disabling multiple Vraxian cruisers. Ships that had once seemed indestructible now floated like broken monuments to pride and arrogance. On the bridge, Mara's crew exchanged quiet, triumphant glances. Fear had not left them, but it had transformed into something stronger: belief. Belief that humanity could survive, that courage could turn the tide, that even the smallest spark could ignite a revolution. As the Vraxian fleet scattered in retreat, Threx's massive form trembled with rage and humiliation. His pride had been shattered, his fleet fractured, and the humans had done what no one thought possible. One ship, one single human battleship, had broken the mightiest armada in the galaxy. Mara stood tall, watching the fleeing ships. Her heart pounded not from fear, but from the weight of history being written. "We've done the impossible," she whispered. Not for glory, not for power, but to remind the galaxy that courage matters, that even the smallest species can defy the greatest empires. The stars around them seemed to burn brighter, as if witnessing the birth of a new legend. Humanity had faced the unthinkable and survived. The spark had ignited, and nothing would ever be the same again. In the silence that followed, Mara looked at her crew and said, "We've won this round, but the galaxy is vast. There will be more battles, more challenges. But remember this: courage is stronger than fear, hope is stronger than despair, and humanity will never bow to pride or tyranny." The Defiant floated through the stars, battered yet unbroken, carrying the courage of an entire species. Somewhere in the Vraxian Empire, fear and doubt had been planted, and somewhere in the hearts of humans, hope had been forged into something stronger than steel. The turning point had come. The battle would continue, but humanity had shown that even against gods they could stand, fight, and win. The void of space was quiet, but it was no longer oppressive. The USS Defiant floated among the wreckage of Vraxian ships, the remnants of an empire's pride shattered by the courage of one human battleship. Explosions still flickered in the distance, smoke and energy drifting lazily through the stars. Humanity had survived. Humanity had fought, and humanity had won. Captain Mara Jenkins stood at the viewport, her hands resting lightly on the railing. The galaxy stretched endlessly before her, filled with infinite stars and endless possibilities. Her heart was pounding not from fear, but from the knowledge that something had changed forever. One ship, one crew, one species. Against all odds, they had shattered the legend of the Vraxians. Lieutenant Raj Patel approached her quietly, a soft smile on his tired face. "Captain, we did it. They're retreating. The fleet is scattered. The galaxy, it's ours now." Mara shook her head, a small smile breaking through her exhaustion. "Not ours," she said softly. "It's not about claiming the galaxy. It's about showing it that fear is not the only language, that even the smallest, weakest, most underestimated species can make a difference. We reminded them, the Vraxians, that no one is invincible." Far away, Captain Threx stared at the remnants of his fleet, his massive metallic frame trembling. Pride, which had guided his empire for centuries, lay in ruins. His soldiers whispered among themselves, disbelief and shame filling the void where confidence once lived. One small human ship had done what no Vraxian had ever imagined possible. One human ship had broken their legacy of fear. On the Defiant, Mara's crew moved quietly among the stations, checking systems and attending to minor repairs. Their faces were streaked with sweat, dirt, and tears. They were exhausted, yet alive, and something stronger than survival filled their hearts. Triumph. They had faced the galaxy's greatest conquerors and endured. They had done more than fight. They had inspired. Mara's eyes drifted to the stars again. "This is only the beginning," she whispered to herself. "Other worlds will hear about this. Other systems will see that the Vraxians can be defied. And humanity will be remembered." The silence of space was broken by a distant signal. The remnants of the Vraxian fleet were attempting to regroup, but hesitation lingered in their movements. Their pride had been shattered. Their fear was real, and for the first time, they questioned everything they had ever believed about their empire. "Captain," Raj said, standing beside her, "they may come back. They may try again, but we've shown them that they can be challenged." "That's more than survival, it's victory." Mara nodded. "Yes, and we will be ready. We may be small, we may be few, but we have courage. And courage. Courage changes everything." The crew gathered on the bridge, looking at Mara. Their eyes were bright with relief, pride, and awe. Each of them had faced death and uncertainty, yet they had endured. Together they had taken on an empire and emerged victorious. And though they were just one ship, the echo of their actions would ripple across the galaxy for generations. Far away, in the shattered Vraxian fleets, whispers of fear spread. They were only one ship," a soldier murmured. "And yet, they defeated us." Mara looked down at her crew and spoke with quiet authority. "We did not fight for glory. We fought because it was right. We fought because we could. And now the galaxy knows that courage is stronger than fear. Hope is stronger than oppression, and one small spark can ignite a revolution." The stars above seemed to shimmer brighter, as if the universe itself was acknowledging their victory. The Defiant floated onward, carrying humanity's message across the void, that no empire, no matter how mighty, could crush the heart of those who refused to bow. Mara's voice softened almost to herself. "We are small, yes, but we are not powerless. One spark, one choice, one battle can change everything. And today we have done exactly that." As the Defiant turned toward the uncharted stars, the galaxy seemed to hold its breath, waiting for what humanity would do next. For the first time in history, the Vraxians had learned that pride, no matter how vast, could be broken. And humanity had learned that courage, determination, and hope could shine brighter than any weapon, stronger than any fleet, and mightier than any empire. A new dawn had begun, not just for the humans, but for the galaxy itself. One ship had defied gods, one spark had ignited a revolution, and in the endless black of space, humanity's courage burned brighter than 1,000 stars.